grandfather. I never knew so many people came to America from so many countries. I'm wondering, how did they all get there in those early days? Also, where did they all live? Did they?
Dear granddaughter, when I came to America, I was able to fly on a plane, but in those early days, people had to come by boats. First, there were sailing ships. Then around the turn of the century, steamships were used. When heading to New York, immigrants traveled across the Atlantic on a ship for 3 weeks in crowded below-deck quarters called steerage. They ate black bread, boiled potatoes, and water soup. As the immigrants sailed into New York Harbor, they sailed past the Statue of Liberty on their way to Ellis Island. When the immigrants saw the Statue of Liberty, they knew they had arrived in the United States. Once the immigrants reached the United States, they usually have to wait on board the ship for days because the immigration station was so crowded. Everybody coming to America had to check in at an immigration station before they were allowed to live here. This is where they kept track of everyone entering the country. But not everyone who came to America got to stay. If an immigrant was sick, he or she might be forced to go back to his or her country. In 1892, Ellis Island welcomed 17 million people to America. On the West Coast, immigrants usually landed at the Angel Island Immigration Station in San Francisco Bay. Millions of these arriving immigrants stay in the cities where they landed. On the East Coast, that was New York City. For most immigrants, these cities were a whole new world. New York was like no other place they had ever seen. Many immigrants had lived on small farms in Europe and had hoped to buy land in the United States, but very few could afford to do that. So they often settled into crowded neighborhoods. A lot of immigrants live with relatives or friends in poorly built apartments called tenements. Tenement life was a hard one. 5 to 6 people would have to sleep in one tiny room. It was dark and stuffy, with too few windows for light or air. The streets outside were always noisy and dirty. Most immigrants worked long hours with little pay. As a matter of fact, wages were so low that everyone in the family, even young children, had to work. This was just to earn enough money for food. Factory businesses were growing and crowded with workers. Women and even children worked in factories. The cities in the Northeast eventually grew much larger and more crowded because of a great many immigrants who wanted to settle there. But even with those difficulties, immigrants were determined to make a life for themselves here. One way the immigrants were able to cope with these difficulties was to form communities based on the various ethnic groups. An ethnic group is a group of people from the same country, people of the same race, or people with a common way of life. These ethnic communities or neighborhoods could be found in just about every area of the United States. New York City is packed with neighborhoods based on ethnic communities. Many Italian families settle in a New York neighborhood called Little Italy. There are the traditional outdoor cafes here, as well as stores that sell Italian products, everything that reflects their culture back home. The largest Chinese population in the United States live in Chinatown, which is in San Francisco. Los Angeles' largest ethnic community is a Latin American neighborhood located in East Los Angeles. These Latin American neighborhoods were known as barrios. A barrio is a neighborhood of Spanish-speaking people. And many of the people in these barrios are from Mexico and Central and South America, or are the children or grandchildren of these immigrants. Like most other new immigrants to the United States, few Mexicans spoke English or knew people here. Just to be able to talk with people in their own language make them feel more at home.